recording. Okay. So we have this VR context, and the stuff that we had done before is down here, just a blob, like a giant brain dump of all this kind of stuff. And that gave us some nouns and some verbs to play with. And I kind of did this exercise again, starting with, okay, as a user, I come to a home page, right? So I'm over here. And then what do I want? And I felt like the goal is I want to be able to play games with you guys, right? We all have Oculus website, and I want to do this so that my main thing is like we shouldn't all have to pay like $40 for a game. Like I have, because the games aren't family plans. Like I would have to buy Star Trek $40, and then you both would have to shell $40 just for us to play, and it's a huge sign up process, and I don't like that. So I want to get to the point where we can start playing games together, like with friends, and I want this to be kind of like a hub for that, or meetings or things like that of that nature. So it should have like an events page or popular spaces where you could say, oh, here's new VR content, and I want to jump in and I want to check out what people have built. So what's the most direct path to this kind of stuff, right? So events are kind of like, oh, here's a birthday party or a presentation, and as long as you share this in a public way, this is kind of like meetup.com. Like there's stuff going around in the metaverse. And popular spaces is something that's like there's a lot of people in there, and or there was a lot of people there recently or something, and you can kind of go in there, and these are kind of like spaces that might be permanent or they're currently open. I don't know, but you see a list of spaces versus a list of schedules, which is what the events are, and they're kind of related. That a event might have a like reoccurring schedule and it happens at a venue, like might be here. So you could have like a weekly meditation thing that happens in a weekly thing. But outside of the event, whether this is permanent or not, we don't know. So then what can you do there? Okay, so you're clicking here, you click here, you click over here. That's 3 clicks. And then you can do something, right? So you can enter a space. And I figure that the road I was going down was, okay, if we're saying you create a space first and then you add entities, and then we have a library of entities, like you can pull in walls and kind of stuff, that part of the stuff is easy, and I don't want to recreate what there's already really good tools for the geometry of stuff, like Maya, Blender, even Babylon JS or Hub's spokes. They have ways to edit stuff in the scene. So placing it, moving it, rotating it. I'm kind of like, I was kind of going down recreating that, but then we're still going to have a hard hump to cross when we actually get to the game part of it. Like, how do you define rules? Nobody does that part very well. I mean, there's different ways of doing it. Like Minecraft, I've been watching videos. You can do some of that with some of the widgets, and then you have to drop down into like Java programming. Rec Room, you can kind of do that, and in what do you call Facebook Horizons, you can kind of do some programming, but it is kind of like clunky, and you got to attach wires together and stuff like that. So I say, okay, maybe a space maybe is defined on like entities, but maybe higher level. So maybe they're called widgets, or I later renamed this to constructs. They're just something that's pre-made that has a certain behavior. So we don't want people to have to add an entity and then also add a component like, oh, rotation. I have to add another thing for it. So let's just say that these widgets or constructs, they come with certain behaviors. And so you can enter a space. And then I feel like the thing that I didn't like about Rec Room, that I didn't like about VR Chat, is as soon as you enter a space, somebody was like shooting you already. Like, I don't want to drop into a war zone. I feel like you should enter into like a quiet place where nobody can hurt you yet. And then you can read a sign and you can say, oh, this space is about this. And if you want to play, you click this button and it says, okay, next game starts in five seconds or something. This is kind of like what Bobby, you remember the zombie game, Arizona Sunshine.
Arizona. Uh-huh.
Yeah, you go in there and then there's like there's no zombies attacking you right away, right? It's like you're in there, you're collecting weapons and you're chilling with friends or whatever. And when you're ready to play, you click that sign, you shoot at that sign, and it says, "Oh, waiting for everyone else to kind of join you," right? So I think every experience should just have that out of the gate. So you can enter a space and then you opt into play. So you're kind of like in this lobby area first. You click that thing and you're ready to play, and then there's a countdown that says, "Okay, now we're ready to um, bring you into the game." So when the game starts, then you get teleported down into the game. And then these are actions that you can do, which are like move and teleport. So what the what the back end does is, or what the front end does is, it loads all these widgets or loads these constructs, constructs, which define how the game works. And maybe rather than get totally bogged down with what the persistence and what the model is, we just do event sourcing. So we just say, okay, these are messages that are coming in. You can have, you just know that somebody moved or somebody did this thing, and then we have to change the state somehow. But the persistent might change. It might be a graph database. It might be going to Kinesis. It might be Postgres. Who knows? That can evolve. So I shouldn't start with that in necessarily. And then here's some ideas for constructs. So in order to build spaces, like maybe one thing we can do is not force people to, here's the wall. Let me pull in another wall. Let me pull in um, every flower plant, whatever. If you wanted to build spaces quickly, you could have like these procedural widgets that come in and say, okay, here's a forest. It has density. These are the kind of trees it can have. And then boom, randomly, it'll just build like, 10 square miles of forest or something if you want it to, right? Or a procedural ocean. It's just like, here's an ocean widget. It already like moves like an ocean. And you can say, I want it green or blue. You can change a couple of parameters on it. The same thing with the maze. You could just say, I want a new maze, and I'll just randomly generate it, so that we could all jump in and play a new thing together. And we don't actually have to spend that much time meticulously building out everything. If you want to, I think you can go to a Blender and then build it in Blender and import it in if you want total control of it. But we're never going to recreate that kind of stuff. Like we want to make easier tools. Skybox is one, spawn points, and that sign that I was talking about, like you can opt into it. I think these are be character reusable things that we could use. And then things like a gun, like if you pick up a gun and you squeeze it, it'll make a gun sound, it'll fire a bullet, and people don't have to write that. We'll just create those things, as well as zombies that if you put it in a space, it kind of moves like a zombie already. And these are typical things that people might want in kind of games, and it'll just like come at you and try to hurt you, right? Other things that meetings went on is like whiteboard, markers, pointers, all that kind of stuff. So we should build a library of these higher level things. Um, so I thought that the exercise should turn into, um, so here's the plan. Let me make this bigger. Okay, so we want to get to this part. So let this be our North Star. We keep coming back to this part. We want to get to the part where we can have fun playing games together in VR in a browser. To get to that part, we can write games using some reusable elements that empower others to construct their own games. I call these like constructs. All right, so we want to get to that part. And we kind of started around this path. Maybe it was too low level with entities and components, because I had read that some games, they structure their things like entity component system. Now, we might still use some of that, but maybe to expose the kinds of people that I want to create spaces, we don't have to give them this kind of vocabulary. We just says, here's some stuff. You know what a gun does. Pull a gun into your scene, right? You know what a monster does. Just pull this thing into your scene. So in order to enter a game or experience, we need to define what that experience is with those Lego building blocks called constructs. So we're going to need some kind of persistence and serialization, which I was kind of starting out with. And yeah, we need to define this. And this thing, I think, will control how the uh, the gen server works, and it'll also control the front end how the JavaScript works. So we need something like this. Spaces we have is just a record. Constructs we can probably start off with as a record with some polymorphic embed on it. So and then I was thinking we needed an editor in order to construct these things, but we actually don't need this editor yet because the editor is just for us to click on some things in the library, put them together, but ultimately it needs to be serialized so that we can execute it somewhere. It needs to be described in JSON so it can be passed to um, the front end to observe what things can be thrown, what things can be clicked on. So it's a declaration of a game, and JSON will be able to be portable to the front end and the back end because it's just data. It's not code, right? So we take that data as a blueprint and we have to make code out of it on the front end and the back end out of it. But we don't need that editor yet. And I wanted to have some sort of testing simulator that could test this whole thing like end to end to be able to execute these games and see if they come out with the right behavior. So maybe we don't need the end to end all at once. We can test like the back end stuff, and then we can test the front end stuff with something like a browser based like WebDriver or something. So in the experience definition, okay, let's say it's made of constructs with parameters. So there's some things you can tune on in it, and then it is downloaded by every browser. It's downloaded to the client for a local simulation. Some of the things will run on the server. For example, if you have a shared timer or something that happens at the same time for everybody, then I think that's going to happen on the server side. For example, if you need to change a state, like game is over, that's shared by every client. So we want it to be broadcast by the server. Otherwise, the client is calculating that for everybody, and it's going to kind of fight with each other, right? So I think some things need to be coordinated on the server. And to discover what kinds of constructs we're going to need, I made a list of. I had this list kind of going of what kind of games would we think we can create. We need to define several kind of constructs so we can use them to define an experience at a high level with a presumption of how the constructs should behave. So I say, okay, let's first make a list of games. So I made a list of games. There's like the Squid Game, red light, green light game, or a zombie run, or maybe mahjong, or just a meeting room with whiteboard and people can do stuff. Like this one doesn't have any state, so this is actually the easiest one. So we've done this already. This I'm sure we can do. Like the space crew will be really interesting is if you can have different people enter on different spaceships and the spaceships are flying around each other and you can shoot each other. So if you have a ton of people, they're on different spaceships and they're communicating over WebRTC. So we can start with the first one. Let's say Jay, did you watch Squid Game?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay. So they play this game, red light, green light, right? Okay, so if we start with the Squid Game, here's how it would explain how the game kind of works in English. Okay, so there's the description. So let's say the player enters into an observation lounge with a large glass window overlooking an area, and it's kind of like a luxurious booth. Remember those? I don't know if you watch Squid Game, you're almost at the end. There's these like rich people, and they're just like they're watching the Squid Game as if it's their entertainment. So they can anyone who joins the space, let's say they enter at that spot, and they can choose whether they want to just watch. So you don't have to join the game. You could just watch the game happening down below through the window and not join the game, right? So then in that space, there is a sign inside the booth, and it has some text explaining what this space is about. So it might say like, oh, red light, green light, players must move from one end of the field to the other end, but they can only move when the light is green, and players that move when the light is red will be eliminated, something like that. And then in the area, there's also a giant clock showing the amount of time remaining, which is counting down if there's currently a game going on. And then the sign will say, okay, click to join the next game. And if the player clicks it, they're eligible to be teleported to the next game at the starting line um, when the game starts. So once they click it, they see the message change to waiting for the next game to start. So obviously this is a message that only they see, because if somebody else clicked it, you wouldn't want to see, oh, you're about to join the next game, right? So that messaging is per user. And I think that most simple games are made up of a series of states. So I was thinking that there's, like, for example, some kind of initial state. So that's when you first enter the game. You're in an initial state, right? And the game server is kind of waiting for players. So there can be maybe some kind of construct that we we pull in, and it says, okay, here's the minimum, and you can configure it. You say, here's the minimum number of players or the maximum number of players. And then whenever somebody like clicks the sign, it will, kind of like debounce the time. So let's say it's 30 seconds until the next game starts. But if somebody joins right there, maybe it, puts 30 seconds more on it and just waiting for more players, or something like that. But then I was thinking, what, this doesn't have to be a construct that pulls in. Maybe this is just the default. So this is just how it always works. As long as you pull in a spawn point, and the spawn point might have a tag that says this is the initial state. But anytime that there's this spawn point put in there, if you also drag in that sign that says, okay, click me if you want to play, when they click on it, as soon as you have enough players or whatever, it will just take you to the next spawn point, which will be like another spawn point that's labeled game started. So we don't even actually have to make them pull in the constructs. We can just have them pull in these spawn points. And as long as you tag them with the right labels, maybe they just have default behaviors on them. So I think that would be even easier. So the server's just kind of doing this for free. It will just watch to see how many players you have, how many people have clicked on that thing. So their state is saying, okay, I'm ready to play, but I'm not playing yet. And then if it's waiting for a message like game over or something. Once it receives a message like game over, it will take all those member players and say, oh, now you're going to change all your states to playing, and then send a message to teleport every one of them down to the arena at the starting point. So maybe that's just a base functionality. But if you never get a message like game over, it's just hidden functionality. Nobody gets teleported anywhere. But this is maybe something that's common enough. Like if we decide you're always going to have this observation lounge whenever you get there, and when you do get a message, I'm going to teleport you to another spawn point if you have this thing labeled like starting point or game start. Another state could be game over. And this could be free too. Like you don't have to pull in some kind of construct that says, oh, game over, I'm listening to this or that. It's just always there. So this is just happening in the background. So the game will automatically be over. Like the server will decide when the game is over if all the players are eliminated, which means that there's some state on every player that determines that they're dead or something. And so if every single player that was playing is dead, then it can emit a message to everyone that says game is over. So we didn't have to, again, force the world builder to know anything about this. We can just have them pull in like guns or whatever, and then whenever you use the gun to shoot somebody, it reduces their health by 10 points or something. And once they reach 0 points, the server knows that that person has been dead. And then it can also do some automatic things, like anytime a player is dead, it will just automatically transport them back, like teleport them back to the initial state, so they end up back in the lobby. So these can just be like pre-baked behaviors. It just always works like this. And so nobody has to code it that way. Then they can just code the like the interactions, like what kind of things you do to like hurt each other or heal each other, for example. Game started is that spawn point, that this is the location, let's say at the end of the field, where you get teleported to when the game starts. So you automatically kind of get here once this is fulfilled. So this is okay. You will transition from initial state to game started when there's at least, maybe at least 3 players, let's say. And then here I feel like here's where you can add some customization. So this is kind of like specific to red light, green light, but you can say you can add an amount of time to the game started that says, I want you to go to this state after this many seconds. So that says, okay, transition to green line state within 1 second. So imagine you're there, you click on the button and you say, okay, I want to play this thing, and enough people joined, and then we all get teleported down to the starting point. And then the state is in game started. In 1 second, game goes to green light. State goes to green light. And then here, you can add another rule that says, okay, transition to red light after this many seconds. Maybe there's a variable you set. So after 10 seconds, right? And then you can also play a sound or whatever. And then when you're in green light, after, let's say, 10 seconds, this transitions to red light. So now in this state, this is going to wait another X number of seconds and then transition you back to green light. So they keep going back to back against each other. But you can also make the duration shorter. So you can change the variable. So on enter, you can change the variable so it like decreases with time. This might be kind of hard to express in something because you have to write a bit of code unless there's just a construct that we can pull in that is called red light, green light, and it behaves this way. So I'm not quite sure about this one yet. And it will just keep doing this until one of these breaks the cycle. So if all players get eliminated, this will fire, and so it will automatically cancel one of these things, and it'll just break you out, right? So it just cancel any other pending state transitions, and it will just override that. It doesn't matter if you were about to go back to green light in however many seconds. If everybody's dead, you just play this game over state. So that's when I'm driving out what I think the game needs, what kind of constructs you need to play this game. And so these are kind of my ideas. So yeah, maybe we don't have to pull in these abilities. These abilities just are always there. You're just pulling in the things that the server's always watching for. So again, you can pull in a spawn point, label it initial, and that's the place you go to when you're not playing yet. When you enter, you're at that place. So if you tag a spawn point with game start, like you tag a different spawn point with game start, then you'll teleport there if the game is started, and you'll teleport back to the initial point if you die. Let's see. If you pull in an opt-in side, so you pull in a construct that's an opt-in side, you can change the language, what do you want, and it will just behave that way. So you don't have to say, on click, I'm going to set some variable. It will just, this widget is called an opt-in sign, and you get to change the text from before and after, but it's automatically hooked up to behave in a certain way that's going to like teleport you once certain conditions are met. And then you just have to pull in other constructs that can damage players or heal players, like guns and bombs or motion sensors. So for the red light, green light, I was thinking maybe that there's just a widget or a construct called a motion sensor. And this motion sensor is a death by motion sensor. So I was thinking it could be, you could have like a generic motion sensor that does all kinds of things, like motion sensor, like senses your motion, opens a door, but then you say, okay, you'd have to parameterize that, right? So every time I move, send a message to say movement detected by player, ABC, and then you have to do something on that. So you say, okay, on message, like say, animate this door going up. I feel like that's fine, but we can also just make pre-baked widgets that say motion sensing door, so people don't have to hook those things up. It'll just like give us the name of the door and we'll move it, right? So here's a motion sensor death. So you can just say, this is the message I'm listening to have the motion sensor be on, which can be red light. This is the message I'm listening to if I want the sensor to be off, which would be green light. And then I can either set a scale and position, so it's a big box. If I want to have like a localized motion sensor or a very big motion sensor, or maybe there's just a checkbox that says global reach, so it doesn't matter where you are. As long as you're playing and you move, then you're going to send a message to say, yeah, player ABC moved, and then the server will or yeah, player died or something, and then the server will go, oh, okay, you're dead. Yeah, this is when I wanted to like have a generic motion sensor so we can have an on-player message. But I think this goes into like you're almost writing a programming language inside JSON, and I kind of want to avoid people writing programming languages. So as much as we can just make it drag and drop for pre-baked widgets, we could just have more widgets that just be very specific. Like this sensor opens a door, this sensor causes an explosion, and people just have to search the library rather than having a little bit harder but more generalized purpose is harder for us because we have to make it so open-ended and do this thing, play a sound. We'll just have certain parameters, easier parameters on these things. Yeah, I was thinking this could be fun if you don't die immediately, but you're frozen and somebody can like give you health. But okay, we can save that for later. Let's see. So starting with the serialization for the format, I was thinking we declare a JSON file for describing that Squid Game, and then we can maybe test it through Selenium WebDriver, the whole stack. But I was thinking just now, maybe you can just test the back end of it. So before I continue, feedback, any questions? Am I talking to myself?
I don't really have any questions. It does feel like the way you describe it is still a little bit too general. Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see if what an actual game looks like, because right now everything is just made of spaces and constructs can be just about anything that you want. It has all kinds of behaviors that you can attach to them, right? Like basically the idea is that using these constructs I'm able to create any type of game that I like, which is probably a little bit too general. Like the red light and green light game, maybe becoming a little bit more specific, we can see how things might work. Yeah, I don't right now. I can't quite picture what the thing is going to be like.
Okay, let's start with a functional core that has people who are entering the room, and it can disambiguate people who are ready to play based on a message. And then we can maybe add some timing to it to say, okay, once these things are satisfied, let's emit a message that says everyone who said they're going to play can play. So started down this path of widgets. Let me just close this for a minute. Close. I'm also going to change the branch. One moment here.
Holman, I need to step out for like a minute. I'll be back.
Okay.
You guys keep going.
Permission denied. I'm gonna call this explore functional core. And let's just create a module.
Wait, I thought we were gonna start with a JSON, a JSON file, and see how that's gonna look like.
Yes. So I think the functional core could be passed a JSON spec.
Mm-hmm.
What should we call this?
Don't know.
Okay. We'll change the name of it. Okay. Def module v xr func core. And so maybe this has people.
Sure. What would this this module do? Take a JSON and then generate something, output something.
I think maybe that will be at the next layer.
Okay.
I think this thing will just be maybe attendance. What's a way of saying it describes the situation with all the people, like players.
So just players.
Yeah, but they're not necessarily playing a game. They could be like a meeting or something. Audience.
I see. Attendees or audience.
Okay, attendees.
Participants.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know.
Well, they attended your space at least, so. Attendee. Attendee, participant. Yeah, let's make it a participant. Participant. God. God. So maybe a single part. Okay, maybe we make a model for a single participant. Maybe they have an ID.
Like a person?
Yeah.
Okay, so ID, yeah, okay. A name.
Yeah, sure. Name. And maybe these can be like health.
Okay.
Playing. Ready to play. Or should it be like a state where you could be playing? This could be state could be either playing, ready, play, or dead. Or eliminated, right? Eliminated. Or just not playing, I guess. You return to not playing. If you die, you just go back to not playing. I guess we can start with that. Okay. Whoa. Def struct. Elixir def struct. What did I do? Name, blah, age. Oh, put the colon at the end. Or is it a list? You don't have to put these values in. Let's see what I did in other places. Spaces. That's different.
You have an open parentheses at the end. Do you want that? I mean, a closed parentheses.
Is it ID? Or is it just a list? Here's an example, but it gives you default values. What if
I think it's a bracket, square bracket, and then maybe
Yeah.
just the key name or something.
like this?
Yeah. Yeah. Try that.
Okay. So ID, name, health, and state. Okay, so we have a participant here. And maybe the attendees is the, or participants is the module that holds many participants.
Oh. Okay. Like a group of participant group by what?
By space.
Okay.
Like this, I guess, could be space participants.
Do participants need roles? Like some can be an audience, some can be a presenter, some can be players, observers.
Yeah. So I have one is playing and one is not playing. And one is selected, I'm ready to play.
I see.
Yeah, I mean this model might change.
Yeah, okay.
That's a good point. So let's say the XR part space participants, and it's a list of participants. I guess it can be a map. That way the ID can be the ID of the participant. And we can alias. It's a little long. Can we call it attendance? Attendance. Is that a word? Attendance. So we can alias this. So we can write it shorter. And then we can copy and paste the stuff we had before, which was like add a person, remove a person. I think that's pretty basic, right? Add participant. Maybe just enter. So you get the previous attendance, and then you get the, let's say you get the participant. Probably we don't need. I think maybe we just take the ID of the person. And I think even in this participant, maybe we just get the, we can get the name from the database, but we can just do this. It's a health state for now, attendance. So this person says, I want to enter a space, or you can leave. This person left. And this person says, ready to play. And this person said, damaged. ID and damage. So in all of these, you just need to find the record in the map and update it, which is to let's see, how is it? Okay, to enter, you want to do, so attendance is, it is one of these things. And so you're just giving back a new attendance, and you're just setting the ID of sorry, it is ID like this, I think. So we're gonna have to add participant. So alias participant. So maybe we can do something like participant new with ID, something like that. Def new in the ID, return your ID is ID, your health is 100, and your state is not playing, let's say. Yeah, I could have actually done this actually. Does that work? If it's a list like that? Then I don't think you need this. The XR participant.new. Hi. Yep. Okay, does that. And attendance. This doesn't look right. I think I have the ID. Did we get cut off?
10 minutes.
10 minutes?
Mm-hmm.
Do I have the syntax wrong? Oh, it has to be participants. Oh, okay. I have to give it a new participants, right? So it has to be participants and then new participants. Which new participants equal to attendance dot participants, and you want to map dot put that. With the key is ID and the value is participant.new with ID. Okay. And if somebody left, then you just map dot delete with this and the key, and get that. And this one, you have to update in place. So map dot get. What happened here? Participant. It's not used. Yes. Then we say that the participant dot state or participant equal map dot put to participant. Or actually, let's do this. Participant and your state is now did I get cut off?
No. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So, because I wasn't able to talk.
Oh.
I was talking, but you guys can't hear me. So.
Oh, okay.
I was gonna say you probably just need two functions. So one to set the a participant's state, the other one to set participant's health.
Yeah.
And then everything else is just like functions on top of that.
Yes. So this can be refactored to a reusable thing. Right? So we can take this. This changes the state. Like you could actually just and then you have to stick this into the previous map. So new participants equal attendance dot participants. Map dot update or put ID with participant. So this could be refactored into a function, right? You're finding it, changing something on it, putting it back into list, and then putting it back into attendance. So we could refactor this into like any kind of function. Like this is just modify participant given the attendance and given a function with a participant. How do I say this? Func. Participant equal, I want to say func dot participant, something like that. Am I cut off?
No, still here.
One more minute.
Okay.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, 4 minutes.
Okay. Well, I can figure out that path. So we have this functional core, things coming in, you're changing the state, but functional cores can't have any timing in it. So with that functional core, I'm going to wrap it inside a gen server, and then for that gen server, the initialization of that gen server, I want to pass in a JSON, some kind of JSON description. For example, minimum number of players is 3. That can be the first JSON declaration, something. So space with min players 3. And then I'll test it by passing it 3 commands that say person entered and person like ready to play. Person entered, person ready to play, person entered, person ready to play. On the third one, it should transition into like changing the state. Then I'll check the state of every person and it'll transition every one of those people into playing. And then it should also emit a message like teleport this player, this player, this player into spawn point 2. So yeah, the JSON declaration should have spawn point tagged with initial and a spawn point tagged with like start, and then the gen server should see the declaration. If they have a spawn point that's tagged with this one, then teleport them. If they don't, then you just leave them alone, right? So can't teleport them anywhere. Okay, well, at least that's something we can pick at. So for objective 1, try to create red light, green light. And
maybe just that game alone is enough. It could be a popular app.
Yeah, I mean, they already created that in Minecraft. It's pretty. You can search it. They created all the
Roblox, right?
all the Squid Games. Yeah. none of them work exactly like it. And then people actually created the game in alt space, but alt space nothing worked. So it's just there, except it doesn't actually like kill you and like move you out. So I think ours will be better. All right. So
Right.
see you
Okay.
next week at an hour earlier. I'll
Same.
change
Yeah.
change the calendar. All right. Bye.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, bye.